Now let's start off talking about his block punishment, and hear me when I tell you, he has amazing block punishment, and for a couple different reasons. For one, his block punishment is really good at pretty much every single level. And for two, in a lot of cases, he has more than one choice. So it gives a diversity to his playstyle. So starting off, we're going to talk about his 10 frame, and his 1-4 is what you see right here. And it does a ballerina spin. It's plus 16 on hit, which is very good. The damage is solid. Now, look at the spacing. When you land this, it sets you up for a lot of his mid to long range attacks that are very strong. And because you're coming off plus 16 frames, it makes it a lot easier to actually set up these moves in terms of frame speed. Like that back 4-4 I just showed was 𝐼18, coming off plus 16. It's like uninterruptible almost. That 4-4-3 I just showed, which is is 𝐼25, again, is like 9 frames coming off 𝐼16. So that's very, very, very good. Also, this move wall splats. You just can't go wrong with a 10 frame Punisher that wall splats. That's just amazing. Then another thing to talk about is that this is block punishment. So even though this is safe on block, don't throw it out because you can see right here it doesn't gel. So use it for block punishment. Now we're gonna talk about his 1-2, and believe it or not, there are good reasons to use this 1-2 depending on your playstyle and how you want to mix it up against your opponent. And I'm basically showing you why right now. If you want to apply pressure from range 0, just right on top of your opponent, then it would make sense to do his 1-2 as a 10 frame Punisher, because that would lead into his 1-string mix-up pressure from his strings from there, or his 1-string stance cancels, which are very good. So I think it's a good idea if you want to do that. Looking at his 12 frame Punishers, he has 2 solid 12 frame Punishers in my opinion. Now his standing 4 is 𝐼12, and yes, it is a counter hit launcher, so it is a magic 4. Every extension from his 4 is a natural combo minus the stance cancel. So his 4-4 is a natural combo, his 4-3 is a natural combo, which means that both of those are technically 12 frame Punishers. I do not suggest using his 4-4 as a 12 frame Punisher because it is -5 on hit. That means that if you are playing a knowledgeable opponent and you do his 12 frame Punisher, you can get counter hit launch. Now, yes, this throw is really cool. It looks really good, but there is a time and a place for that, and that is not for block punishment. Most people will do exactly what you see 𝐂𝐍𝐍𝐄𝐓 right here if you try to continue your pressure there. His 4-3 is what I would suggest going for if you want to use a 12 frame Punisher that keeps him right in front of you and keep the pressure going, kind of similar to his 1-2 for 10 frame. And if you choose to, if you want to do his stance cancels, you can do that as well. I mean, set up the mental frame advantage, cancel into your stance, and start applying your stance mix-ups on them. That's your choice as well. His other 12 frame Punishers is 4-2-1, and that's man, that's amazing. It's a very good 12 frame punish, really good range, does the most damage. I have nothing bad to say about this move. I really don't. It's an elbow, if so somebody trying to parry won't be able to, and it wall splats. So again, great punishment all around. His down 4-2-1 is his 𝐼13 block punishment, and it's really, really good for the most part. The range of his down 4-1 is kind of astonishing to me. Look at the range. Yeah, look at that. Look at that range for a down 4-1. And his standing 3 is also 𝐼13. The range seems to be about the same, so I honestly would choose based on if you want to do like string pressure from his 3-string. His 3-string has some pretty good string pressure and delayable extensions at the end. Or if you want to go into your stance on hit with his standing 3 or his down 4-1, because technically you can interrupt his stance on block, but if you actually go into his stance cancels on hit, in a lot of cases, if not all cases, I do not think they're interruptible. So that's totally viable if you want to do down 4-1 into a stance cancel, which is a true 50-50, or if you want to do his 3-string into a stance cancel, which may not be a 50-50 from mid-low, but from a plus on block to a safe on block, that is technically a 50-50, and both of them are very, very good. At 𝐼14, he has a few options here, and my favorite option probably is his back one. If you look at the range here, the back one has crazy range. You get a guaranteed 4-4-2-1 follow-up if you have the execution. In some cases, you can use it as a whiff punisher. It wall splats, so just a good 𝐼14 frame block punisher. It is launch punishable, but that's not a problem if you're using it for block punishment. Now, another 𝐼14 block punisher is his back 2-1, which I like a lot too. I use this usually when I'm at the wall and somebody's pressuring me to kind of, because you see it has some knockback on hit. It also wall splats. Now, back 2-3, I absolutely love this move. This is a natural combo, so again, it is an 𝐼14 block punisher, but unlike the other low, this move is plus on hit. So it's +2 on hit and forces crouch, so you can get your pressure going with this one. Now, food for thought, if you land the low on counter hit, you will get a hard knockdown. You can get a guaranteed follow-up. That's not so much block punishment, just trying to enlighten you guys there. Now his back 2-1, where you charge up the 1, it becomes a mid. And I actually really love this, and the reason is a lot of times people try to interrupt charge up moves, and rightfully so in some cases. But if you land the back 2, which you will if you do it as a block punisher, and your opponent tries to interrupt, even with the I10 frame move, they will get launched. They don't have the frames to interrupt. I'm trying to interrupt it right here. I cannot do it. So that's really good. Your opponent has to be knowledgeable not to get caught by this. But you can't block it. So if you see here, you get hit by the back 2, he can block it. Your opponent can't block it. And it's a charge up move, so it does wall splat. For 𝐈15, you really should just be using his down 4, 2, 3, because that's his standard 𝐈15 frame launcher. 99.99% of the time, that's what you should be doing for a 15 frame block punisher. I would suggest maybe using down 4, 2, 1 on cases where you can like floor break, if you want to break the floor first and then maybe launch. Or if you're the kind of person who likes to kind of throw it out because it's -11 on block and you're testing your opponent, in cases like that, I don't really suggest doing that. I think that's a bad idea because a good opponent would duck. But if you find them ducking, you can do down forward 2-1 to like mix it up and catch them when they duck like that. So I guess in that case you can do it, but I suggest using it as a block punisher only. That's just my opinion though. Okay, let's look at his while standing block punishers. His 𝐈11 block punisher is while standing 4. The frames are about the same as most while standing 4s, but it does do a good amount more damage. His 𝐈13 block punisher is while standing 1, 2, which is mid high. Now this is a natural combo, so it is a block punisher, but it is very, very hit confirmable. So this is one of those moves that if you want to throw out from time to time, if you're good at hit confirming, then it's actually okay in my opinion to do it. But if you're not, you will get duck and launch. So again, you have to be good at hit confirming. Now his while standing 3 is his 𝐈15 frame launcher from while standing, and I think it's very, very good. For one, it's a knee. So as I said before, most characters can't reverse or parry a knees, elbows, headbutts, things like that. It has really, really, really good range. So I think it's a really good while standing 𝐈15. Now his while standing 2-4 is his 𝐈16 frame block punisher. And I have mixed feelings about this because if a move is -16, then you can't just do his while standing 3 and get a launcher. Even by the wall, it's better to do his while standing 3 because his while standing 3 will wall splat, whereas the while standing 2-4 will not. But for other purposes, I think his while standing 2-4 is actually very good. For example, if you want to apply a full crouch mix up because it's only -10 on block and it's mid. If you want to apply the pressure of his stance mix up because he has a stance cancel from there. So I think while standing 2-4 in that case is very good as well. So I do think there is a situation where while standing 2-4 is pretty good. I just don't really see it for block punishment. Okay, let's get into these stances. Now, Fahkumram's stances are a big part of his character and his playstyle. I call them StanceOne, StanceTwo, and StanceThree for simplicity purposes and point of reference. But the way it really works is you just have a set of strings and you have the option of finishing these strings completely or canceling the last hit of the strings into one of his stances, and you get different string enders. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about complementing strings for his stances, and that's it. There's nothing really complicated about it. So we're going to start with StanceOne, so let's just get into that. Now there are 4 strings that cancel into StanceOne, and even though StanceOne has the most string cancels per string, all of the strings are pretty much identical in properties outside of the startup animation. Now right here, this is string 1, I10, 1, 2, 4, 3. Okay, now this is string 2, I12, and the only difference is you remove the 1, 2, 4, 3. Almost identical, just 2, 4, 3 versus 1, 2, 4, 3. Now this is the 4 string, is 4, 3, you remove the 2. I12 as I showed in the punishment, and it's just 4, 3, you remove the 2. That's simple. Now this is a down 3, and now this is a low starter, not a natural combo, but basically you just put down 3 in front of the 4, down 3, 4, 3. Again, almost identical. And showing you right here that all 4 of these strings have a 4, 3 ender, all 4 of these strings have a 4, 4 ender, and you cancel into the stance on the 3 input for all 4 strings. Something I really like about Fahkumram with his strings that complement his stance cancels is that it seems to be if you whiff the first hit and connect the second hit, if it's 3 hits or less, the rest of the string is guaranteed. If you see here, I'm whiffing the 1 and the 2, 4, 3 of the 1 string is guaranteed. And if the string is 3 hits or less, then the entire string is guaranteed on counter hit. Like right here, 2, 4, 3, the rest of the strings are guaranteed if you connect with the 2, and you're going to see the same thing with the down 3. That's really good because Fahkumram doesn't honestly, at least I haven't really seen him have any good high crush moves. So this really will help negate your opponent's pressure or make them second think their pressure against you. And if you also think about it, these are an I-10 and two I-12 strings, not counting the down 3. So that's also really good because it's really fast and it helps kind of keep the momentum of his own pressure. So I think that's really awesome. I think that's very helpful for him. I think it complements his stance cancels very well. And as you see here, the 4 strings are all just natural on hit, as I said before. Okay, we're pretty much done with the commonalities between the 1 string, the 2 string, the 4 string, and the down 3 string. The 1 string does have a couple of more extensions that we're about to talk about, and you're going to see that they're actually really important. And I'm going to show you a few reasons why. One of the reasons why, if you look at the screen right now, you can basically see the common denominator of weaknesses of all these strings that you can simply duck and beat out every single option of every single string I showed you. Now, one extension of the 1 string that the others don't have is a 1-1, which is a high mid string. This is really good because the second hit is a mid. It's not a natural combo, but on counter hit, you see it is a natural combo on counter hit. And if the second hit, the mid, hits you by itself, it gets a hard knockdown. And I'm pretty sure you get some follow-ups here. I haven't really researched to see what it is. Now, I'm going to give you another example of why this is really good. If you look at 𝐂𝐍𝐍𝐄𝐓 right here, going to her switch stance from her 1-2-4, the 1-2 jails and you can duck the 4. Now, a mix-up for that is her 1-2-3. Because you can't duck the 3 and the 3 is a mid. The problem with this is that the 1-2 being high, if you duck, it gives you a lot of time to whiff punish it, as you see right here. You do not have that problem with Fahkumram with the second hit being a mid of the 1-1 string. So that's one reason that string is very good. Now let's look at the last extension of his 1 strings, and that is his 1-2-1. And this synchronizes very well with his stance cancel strings, just like the 1-1 string, because the third hit is a mid. So the 1-1 string, the second hit is a mid, and the 1-2-1 string, the third hit is a mid. And both of these strings are safe on block. I cannot overstate the importance of that. And it also has an additional extension, which is 1-2-1-4, and that's not safe on block, but it's only -11. Now, if you're paying attention to the screen, notice that I am delaying the 3rd and the 4th hit in sequence. I talked about how strong that is in my Ginryu guide. Really good mental frames there. Now, just like before, if you connect the second hit of this 4-hit string on counter hit, you get the rest of the string guaranteed. And you see it also wall splats. This is a really good string in my opinion. Okay, let's look at the moves from his stance. Now his StanceOne has 2 moves that come out of it. His 3-1 is a spinning elbow, and it is a high, so you can duck it, but it is elbow, and that's always nice. Now this is kind of a diverse move. You see right here, this move is a tailspin, it's a natural launcher, and it is safe on block, just to mention that as well. Now his 3-4 is a mid knee, and that is also safe on block. If he lands it on hit, it's a regular knockdown. Now if you can charge this move up and land it, you enter the realm of Fahkumram power here. On hit, it is a natural launcher. On block, it is +14, and it has really good spacing. It basically sets you up for Fahkumram's mid to long range moves, and he has a lot of good mid to long range moves. It also wall splats on block. You just have to be able to get your opponent to freeze up to pretty much take advantage of his stances, but that's what all the other strings I've been talking about are set up for. So here I want to talk about why his stance is not OP, but also why his stance is complete and why you need to use everything I just showed you to make his stance complete. Originally, I said on block, you can interrupt his stance with a move I-12 or faster in the previous video. That's still true, but I've also learned that you can actually interrupt most of his attack moves from his stance with the I-15 frame launcher, which is way more dangerous than I-12, which means that you can launch them on block for a lot of his stance attacks. That's crazy to me because he's just not plus on block. Now here's the catch: if you try to interrupt off of a read and he finishes his string, you're going to get attacked, you're going to get hit. And remember before when I said there is a place for his 4-4? Well, that is here and now. If your opponent tries to interrupt your string and you land the 4-4 on counter hit, you get some pretty decent damage and you basically get like a little mini throw there. But if your opponent reads that you're going to go for an interrupt, they can duck you because, as I said before, all of the strings going into his stance are duckable. So they can duck you and launch, or they will duck and block the low, and that is still launch punishable. It's -16. But again, this is where the 1-1 and the 1-2-1 comes into play, because if they duck, you can get hit by the 1-1 or the 1-2-1. So you see, it's kind of a pretty good synchronized balance here, and I like that. Okay, last thing I want to show is that your stance cancel strings and your stance cancel moves does have some weaknesses when it comes to being linear. You see right there, the 4-4 is steppable to the right, and the 3-1, you can sidewalk it in either direction pretty easily, and the 3-4 is very steppable to the right. Now, how you beat this with Fahkumram is that you finish your string with 4-3. 4-3 tracks to both sides and you can't step there, and this is kind of another way of completing the stance to help negate that one weakness. Now if your opponent is doing a charge up move, you need to make sure you're locking your opponent down before you do this. It's very stuffable, and it's obviously on block is very interruptible. So make sure that you're pressuring your opponent very effectively, putting on good mind games and keeping them basically frozen in place, because the charge up moves are very strong, but if they know it's coming, then man, you're gonna get hurt. You're gonna get hurt really bad. But that's it for stance 1. Let's go to stance 2. Okay, now let's get into his stance 2. So for his stance 2, he has 3 strings that cancel into his stance 2. His standing 3, which is I13, we already talked about that. His 4-3, which is amazing string, which is I17, and his while standing 2 string, which is I16. Now, unlike before when we talked about his stance 1, where the 1 string, the 2 string, the 4 string, or whatever had a lot of commonality between them, that's not really the case with his stance 2. They're pretty unique strings on their own, and I personally, just my opinion, like the moves out of his stance 2 much more than the moves out of his stance 1. But just like before, we're also going to talk about the strings that complement his string cancels and his stance 2 moves in general. Okay, we're going to start with the standing 3 extensions. Now 3-1 is mid-high. The high is safe. This is not a natural combo. On counter hit, it is a natural combo. So the entire string is 3-1-4-4, where the 3rd and 4th hit are both unsafe, but you can delay the 4th hit a lot for some pretty good mental mind games. And the frames on the 3rd hit are so good that even if you delay the string, it is a natural combo, so easily hit confirmable. Just like before in the previous section, if you get the 2nd hit on counter hit, the rest of the string is guaranteed. That's really good. And the wall splats. There is a 3-1 down 4-4, a mix-up ender, where the frames is very similar to the 4-4 ender in the previous section, where it's -5 on hit and -16 on block. But unlike the previous section, the entire thing is not guaranteed on counter hit. And if you do land a counter hit, you get +10 frames on hit, which is good, but it's not equivalent to the 41 damage throw that you get. Now the mix up for 3-1 being mid-high is 3-4. That's mid-mid, and that again is unsafe on block. It is not a natural combo. It is a natural combo on counter hit. So it also wall splats. There's a lot of things here that are good mix-ups that you see, but you can also see that they're unsafe on block. Now, if you land a 3-4, you do get a guaranteed 4-4-2-1, which is really good. The string extensions for standing 3, I think they're solid because of the mix-ups, but I don't think they're really strong because a lot of the enders are unsafe on block. But I do think it complements the stance 2 cancels fairly well. Now looking at the 4-3 extension, now his 4-3 has really good range. I think it's even better than his standing 3. It is I-17 as I said before. Now 4-3-2 is mid-mid. That is unsafe. It is not a natural combo. 4-3-2-1 is a mid-mid-high where the high is safe, of course, deductible. And the mix up there is 4-3-2-4, and that mid is unsafe. Now if you land the 2nd hit in both extensions, everything is guaranteed. And if you land the 4-3-2-1 or the 1 in that extension, you get a pickup combo as you see here, which is really, really good. Now, if you land the 4-3-2-4 on counter hit, you get a guaranteed 4-4-2-1 if you have the execution. And one thing I love about this is probably what makes me like this string so much is that if you land a 4-3 on counter hit, everything is guaranteed and you get a pickup combo. And I just think that's pretty amazing. And the last string that he cancels into his stance 2 is his while standing 2-4. And you can see the range here is really good, which is kind of like a theme with Fahkumram. It's nothing really special at this point. It's just who he is. Now, there are no additional extensions out of this besides while standing 2-4, but it does do its job. The principle of the matter is if he finished the string, it'll stop people from interrupting his cancel. And he can, as you see here, use the full crouch down 4-3-2 to kind of add mix up pressure there. And that can also help lock your opponent down as well. His stance 2, just like his stance 1, has 2 moves that come out of it. His 4-3 is a safe on block mid. If you land this on hit, it causes a slow knockdown. If you land this on counter hit, you get a counter hit launcher. And that's one of the things I really like about stance 2 is that he has 2 launchers from his 2 moves in his stance that don't require the charge up feature. And I just think that's really, really nice. His 4-4 is a natural launcher. It wall splats by the wall. This is really a cool multi-purpose move. Even though it's a high, it is +6 on block. And to me, that enforces more of a 50-50 because it's so advantageous on block. Your opponent will be more inclined to duck, which will give more impact to 4-3, the mid. Now, if your opponent is trying to step, this is a homing move, and it's also a tailspin move, so you can use it in your combos. Now, the charge up feature, let's not forget about that. If you do 4-3 and you charge it up, it is a natural launcher. It is +14 on block, and it will wall splat on block. Okay, real quick, let's go over a quick overview of the strings that complement his stance cancels. Now, You can't really step any of these strings. I don't believe there are any gaps to step mid string or anything like that. Even a down 4, whereas the 4/4 ender in StanceOne, you could step it. I don't believe you can do that here. I could be wrong, but I haven't been able to do it. So maybe you're just better at movement than me. Another thing that I don't know if you guys picked up on, I'm showing you now on screen, but every single mid extension and every single mid ender or low ender is block punishable. He doesn't have a single safe one, whereas in StanceOne, I was saying the 1/1 is safe or the 1/2/1 is safe, and I was saying that's really good. That is not the case with any of these strings, so that's a pretty big weakness. Now, if you choose to stagnate with ending with a high or just finish with a high, you can obviously duck that. Even though that's safe on block, you can duck and launch that. Now, obviously, the mind games is if you do duck that, he can hit you with the mid, and that's kind of the balancing factor here. So looking at his StanceTwo moves a little bit more in depth, remember how I told you guys in StanceOne you can interrupt pretty much both of his stance moves on block with 𝐂𝐈_15 frame launcher? Well, you see here that's actually not the case. His 4-4 comes out a little bit too fast that you end up trading. So if you want to interrupt, you should do 𝐈13 or 𝐈12. You might be able to get 𝐈14, but I just do think 𝐈13 or 𝐈12 just to be safe. Now his 4-3 tracks to the left and it does not track to the right whatsoever at all. So that's something to be aware of. But also remember, 4-4 is homing and a natural launcher. So if you actually decide to step it, there is a 50-50 guess here that you could end up getting launch, but that's a high, so you can duck and launch that. Now this move, even though it's a high, seems to have a little bit of a low hitbox, so make sure you confirm the whiff before you try to launch it. Now looking at the charge moves, this is pretty much the same as I've always said. If you read the charge move, you can launch it, you can step it, super linear to both sides. But if you don't read the charge moves, you know, you will get launched for it, or you would deal with the +14 on block. So just if you are trying to do the charge moves for his StanceTwo, just like StanceOne, make sure you're applying proper mix-ups. Make sure you're not being predictable so you can lock your opponent down to actually set it up. Okay, for StanceThree, he has his 4-4-4, which he can use to cancel into his StanceThree. That is one move. And then he also has his down forward 1 string, which he can use to cancel into his StanceThree. And the StanceThree is actually a true 50-50 stance, as it is a mid-low option. Checking out his down forward 1 extensions. So his down forward 1-2 is a mid-high natural combo, safe on block, +6 on hit, so good frames on hit. Now if you land the 2 on counter hit, you can dash in for down 3-4 pick me up combo. His down forward 1-2 tilde 1 cancels the 2 into another mid, so this is a mid string. It is also safe on block, and if you land this on hit, it does a flip me over. And this is really good by the wall because it'll give you some pretty nice 𝐂𝐬𝐍𝐄. Now his down forward 1-4 is also mid. It is unsafe on block, unlike the other 2 extensions I just showed you. And this to me is pretty much used to check your opponent if they're ducking the down forward 1-2. You do the down forward 1-4 to like catch them. And it's not a natural combo, but on counter hit it is a natural combo, and it also wall splats. His 4-4-4 is his last move to cancel into his StanceThree. Now his 𝐈22, a tailspin mid homie move. I will mix this up with his 4-4-3 that you just saw, which is 𝐈25, and his back forward 4, which is 𝐈18. I just think all 3 of these moves complement themselves very well. Even if you just look at the starter frames, I think they complement each other very well to throw off your opponent's timing. His 4-4-4 is unsafe on block. It is -13, but you see right here it's really hard for your opponent to punish. His 4-4-3 is +5 on block, but it's linear. His back 4-4 is +6 on block, but it's a high. So again, I think they complement each other very well. And his 4-4-4 and his 4-4-3 both wall splat. Now StanceThree has 2 moves out of it, just like all the other stances, but there are a few unique differences. For one, it is the only stance that has a mid-low 50-50 attack. It is the only stance that has a move that is actually punishable on block, and there are no charge up moves from StanceThree. I repeat, there are no charge up moves from StanceThree. So the first attack I'm showing you here is a hell sweep. That is the low attack. The next attack is a mid elbow. It is like +7 and forces crouch. So really good frames there. If you land the elbow on counter hit, you see you get a counter hit launcher. If you land the hell sweep just the low on counter hit, you will also get a counter hit launcher. So there are 2 counter hit launchers right there. Now, if you land the elbow on block, it is 0 on block. And that's just really good to have a mid elbow that's 0 on block. Now, if you block the hell sweep, it is a hell sweep. So it's a stagger block. So you get launch punish for that. Now, some people don't know, if you actually whiff the hell sweep and block the actual mid, that is launch punishable, as you see here. But if you whiff the hell sweep and land the mid, that is a launcher. So it is very well balanced. Okay, before we wrap up StanceThree and the complementing strengths, there are a couple more things I do want to talk about. First thing is that down forward 1-2 tilde 1, the mid string that's safe on block. That move is extremely linear. If you're playing an opponent that has good movement, be careful because he can easily step that move to both sides. You want to keep your opponent honest and keep him in check by using down forward 1-4 because the forward extension here is homing. And just like every single other stance off of block, you can interrupt all the StanceThree moves on block. Fahkumram is not plus on block, okay? You can interrupt every single one. Never forget that. Do not be predictable. Make sure you're locking your opponent down. Now, the elbow out of StanceThree has a little bit of tracking to the left, but it can be sidewalk to the left. It pretty much has no tracking whatsoever to the right, so it can easily be sidewalk to the right. And the way you kind of deal with this is the hell sweep is, I don't want to say it's homing because I've stepped it before, but it is extremely hard to step, so it's pretty much homing, and that kind of complements the linearity of the elbow from StanceThree. The last thing we're going to talk about is his raised drives. Now, he has 3 raised drives, and I think they're all pretty good. The first 2 we're going to get into is his stance cancel raised drives, which you see here is a low launcher. Now, the thing I like about this is that this comes out as his standing 4, which is 𝐖/12, and that's access to his StanceOne, and it comes out as his standing 3, which is 𝐖/13. That's access to a StanceTwo. And if you're looking at the screen here, you'll see that his StanceOne and StanceTwo only have high and mid options. So when he's in rage, he gets access to an additional 3rd option for his StanceOne and his StanceTwo, and that is a low option. That's really good. It adds a lot more mind games and mix up pressure to for your opponent to deal with. Another thing I like about this is that it actually gels on block. Even though it is low high, if they block the low, they have to block the high. There's no getting out of that, and it's -12, so not too bad. Now, let's talk about his last raised drive, which is, I guess you can call it a tiger knee or something like that. It's 𝐈/15 and it does decent damage. Now, it's only +1 on block, which isn't the best considering a lot of raised drives are much more plus than that, but it is advantageous on block, so I guess we don't have to be greedy. And it also has some high crush properties. If you see here, I'm going completely under the jab, and that's very, very good. Now, it has a very low hitbox, so if you do any move that does the pop-up where the legs like pop up in the air, you can follow this up with his tiger knee raised drive and get pretty much really good combo damage. And this raised drive also floor breaks, so that's really good as well. Now, that is it for the most part for my Fahkumram's overview and breakdown. I hope you guys really enjoyed this guide. It was a lot of fun making it. This is Asset Light. You guys take care.